What's up, guys? It's Mrjamvad, and today we are back for another episode of Team Building with Jam. Yup, they just come out daily, every day. So I know it's been a while. It's been over a month since I posted the last one, but trust, working on them right now. Just gotta grind. Just grind them out. So yeah, today we're gonna be featuring everybody's favorite thing to face, Melmetal. And I decided I want to go a slightly different route with it because it is an interesting Pokemon. It reminds me of Stack Attacker for some reason, probably because it's slow. But you know, Ultra Beast coming back, Stack Attacker, that would be dope. But until then, Melmetal is gonna be your guy. So I decided to go a Trick Room aspect. Trick Room is something I do not usually do, and it's what I call here at Mrjamvad Academy a field condition. Field condition refers to things outside of the Pokemon that impact them positively. Generally, like if you're building the team around that field condition, then it impacts you positively. So things like these may be rain, terrains, Trick Room, like weather. Really, I said rain, but any weather condition, something that impacts that Pokemon positively sometimes. But yeah, you're gonna obviously be building to take advantage of it, and Trick Room is one of those potential field conditions. So in this one again, I decided, hey, let's do something a little different. I don't build Trick Room. I don't think I've ever built Trick Room, or if I have, it's been a really long time. So I decided to challenge myself, and I came up with this bad boy right here. And Trick Room is interesting, particularly in this generation where there are obviously less Pokemon, but at the same time some new Pokemon came along in the sense of Celebi and whatnot. So those are potential options over these. Yeah, so Celebi over Jellicent, or these are all potential options. It's just a matter of, again, testing and adjusting, as you'll hear me recite over and over. So we're gonna get right into the team building. So yep, decided that I wanted to build Melmetal. So Melmetal came first, and it's important when you're team building. Again, I'm gonna emphasize this every time because I want to ensure that if this is your first time watching a team building with Jam, I can't assume that you know all the things that the philosophies that go around these. After a while, I'll stop saying it and just prompt you to a previous video. But since it's still early, I'm still going to kind of speak about these philosophies. And one of those things stick to Pokemon, not English. One of the things that is important to consider when you're team building initially is whether you're going to build around a particular Pokemon with a particular set, particular Pokemon with a particular ability set, because sometimes the set can alternate, with the ability being the bigger thing. That's rarer, but sometimes that can be the case. You might be like, oh, I want to build around Sandrush Drill, and the ability is what draws you in first. The moveset comes afterwards. So it's not always Pokemon and moveset. You could want to use Field Condition. I want to use Sand. I want to use Rain. I want to use Trick Room. And then the Pokemon come after the fact. So in this case, it was a situation of Melmetal came first, and then I decided the subcategory of what I want to build around. So I could have used Melmetal. I could have used Melmetal just overall, but then I decided I want to use Melmetal and a particular field condition, which is Trick Room. So after that, I decided to choose a set because I just feel like there's not too many sets it can run. With the current metagame being in place, maybe with new Pokemon being introduced, it will evolve. But for now, I feel like this is the best set. I decided to go with Life Orb because under Trick Room I think it's valuable to be able to switch up moves, unless it's a type of Pokemon like Dracovish, where unless you're an immunity, it doesn't really matter. But I don't think Melmetal is quite at that level. If it resists Steel, you're going to take it decently well, particularly if you're a defensive type, so bulky water, bulky steel type. or in the rare case a defensive Arcanine or something along those lines, you're likely going to take it well. So I do want to have the option to Thunder Punch, Earthquake, and Superpower for the waters, steals, and fires that I mentioned earlier. So that's the coverage I went with. Obviously, we're going to be doubling down on the bulk and minimizing the speed, because Trick Room, if you're not aware, allows faster Pokemon to move second to the slower Pokemon when that field condition is up. So Life Orb, Iron Fist, boosted Thunder Punch is going to be primarily for your bulky waters, again, your Jellicents, your Vaporeons, your Milotics, sometimes Pex. You do have Earthquake as an option for that. Blastoise exists now. Things along those lines. Seismitoad is going to always pretty much be a problem. It comes in fairly comfortably. Takes a hit, takes a good bit, but still not too much. Melmetal can go for the 2-hit KO Seismitoad, while it can threaten it with super effective Earth Power. So that's something to keep in mind. Beyond this point, that was pretty simplistic. Again, want to get the most out of this new Pokemon Melmetal. So at this point, I had to determine, okay, well, how deep am I going to go as far as Trick Room? Do I want to make it a full-on Trick Room team? Because sometimes you may have Trick Room teams that have half Trick Room, half not. So it has modes. And it all comes down to purpose. Team preview, the game of Pokemon, but more so in team building comes down to purpose. What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to build up towards? Like, what are you trying to do? Sometimes you can build without a purpose in mind. It just finds that teams like those struggle a lot more in the beginning because they have no kind of North Star. It's just kind of all over the place, so you find a lot of holes. However, when you have a purpose in mind, you can build a team more succinctly is the word? Is that what I'm looking for? I feel like it's an S word, but it's not coming to me. But it can be more tightly united. This applies to Battle, but again, I have my series on how to master competitive Pokemon. Literally, you have no excuse. So I'll refer you to that, and that's where I'm going to always be referring people. That or the book. Now that that's out. So back to team building. So the next member, I had to decide, okay, well, how I went about this, I was like, well, what abusers do I want? I'm aware of the Trick Room users, but the thing with Trick Room, I feel like, because it's an interesting one in the fact that the turn you Trick Room up is a turn that gets potentially used, and then you may have to switch because the Pokemon that uses Trick Room sometimes it's not that strong, or it's not that threatening. So you may set up Trick Room and then you have to switch. You may have 3 turns to do something, and in those 3 turns, I'm thinking, okay, how can I maximize my damage output? How can I put the dick down? You know what I'm saying? Put it on the table and just annihilate. And for me, I looked at some previous Trick Room teams that past subscribers have passed me, and I came to the conclusion, like Conkeldurr, I had a couple ones. So this is not the final version that I came up with. I had Surfetch, I think, with Scrappy ability, Choice Bandit, Close Combat is very powerful. I had, for consideration, I believe I had something else. That might have been it. But yeah, that's something I kept into consideration. It might have been a lower tier Pokemon. But yeah, let's just assume Surfetch, because it's the same principle. So me considering Surfetched, or Excavalier or whatever, a slow, strong Pokemon was important, because listen, I need to get that damage output. I need to make sure that this Pokemon is unguardable as I can get. And for me, Conkeldurr and Crawdaunt were just 2 mons that, like, just for what the metagame has right now, were 2 mons that I'm like, okay, those fit the mold, man. If I predict correctly on what you use next, then you're gonna be in a world of hurt. So for Conkeldurr, I have chosen to still run Mach Punch. You can with these movesets, less so with Crawdaunt, but more so with Conkeldurr, you can decide how you want to utilized, right? Conkelder's set is by no means set in stone. Nothing on this team is by no means set in stone. How team building works is you take it on the ladder, take whatever team on the ladder, you test and learn, test and learn, test and alter. If something after 10 games is not giving you the payoff you'd like, change it. Like it's up to you. It's up to you. I'd advise against just changing something after a game, because then you don't really have enough data points to really determine whether or not that was because you're not playing well or it's because of the team. So it's like, okay, if you've deduced, okay, I'm playing pretty well to the best of your understanding, that's relative. So even if you're 1600, 1500, if you're playing well within because you're going to be playing people around your skill level anyway, so you should be able to beat the people around your skill level. And if you feel like, okay, I'm struggling with this, then adjust, adapt. So I think close combat is mandatory. As far as everything else, I think it's the preference. This set does not have Earthquake. Earthquake is solid for stopping Toxapex from coming in comfortably, while also catching Aegis Slash without having to predict King Shield and all that stuff. Facade is nice for a fairy hit, like fairies primarily. Fairies and bulky psychics. Facade just gets off a nice hit, but you could also argue for the bulky psychics. Now that knock is back, you can utilize that. So the Celebies being able to hit, I believe this close combat is probably stronger versus Jirachi. Ghost types, your Alolan Corsolas, if that's a thing. I mean your Galarian Corsola, if that's still a thing. But just your ghost types, period. I'm looking through the tier, and this is generally how I go about it when I'm building. I'm always testing and looking and testing and looking. Okay. With Necrozma's introduction, I'm sure that will see some usage. So things along those lines. Facade allows you for fairies, a strong fairy hit, without having to double down on Poison Jab, because you want something, because you have very limited turns, so you want to be able to get in and get out, and give your opponent very little leeway to pivot around you, because you don't want to be pivoted around, meaning they're switching around their Pokemon, predicting the move you're going to use so they can take as little damage as possible until the Trick Room turns wear off, and then you're going to have to set it back up and So it's not an easy strategy to use, but it can be very lethal if you use it properly. So these two, again, you could use to remove knockoff for Earthquake. You could remove Facade for Earthquake. You could run Facade and knockoff. You could remove Mach Punch, because you're on the Trick Room. You might be thinking, why do you need a priority move? That's weak. You could use Earthquake there, and that's true. You could, right? You could use Thunder Punch there. You could use whatever you so choose. Mach Punch is just nice for situations, and I had something in particular in mind, but it's nice for situations where you're not in Trick Room and you want to just be able to chip something off, because if you have to always be under Trick Room to get utility out of the Pokemon, that's very dangerous. So if you take notes, my Crawdon also has Aqua Jet rather than something along the lines of close combat. Now with the new Pokemon being around, perhaps close combat is superior. If I really think about the mons that are in there now, I guess Virizion coming back, Ferrothorn gets close combated. It's really up to personal preference and what you find is most useful. Perhaps Swordsdance doesn't work for you. You rarely find yourself Swordsdancing, so you can put close combat on it. It's again, I'm gonna say this to ad nauseum. Close combat, it's to your preference. Test and learn. Think for yourself. The Academy's core principles: increase open-mindedness and to empower players. So right now, I want you to be open-minded to failure, adjustment. I don't know everything. I can't predict all things, especially at this point in where I've been away from the game for a bit, for a week or so. So I am not infallible, not even close. So I'm bound to make some errors, so just test and learn. Okay? And don't complain about, oh man, you're weak to Choice Bandit Jinx. Either you use the team, test and learn and adjust, or you go make your own team. Right? So, okay. Crawdon, fairly simplistic. These two are gonna be your main heavy hitters. Now for Trick Room, I decided to go with Jellicent and Hatterene for my Trick Room centers. Now note there are only 2 of them. Some Trick Room teams have 4, some Trick Room teams have 3. Generally, you're not gonna have 5 Trick Roomers because there's just not that many good Trick Roomers that have power and can set up Trick Room. Sometimes you can, but it's not easy to do. So I decided to go with Jellicent here because I liked what it brought to the table as far as resists and immunities. As you can see, fighting resists are, they're lacking. Jellicent also brought up a big water immunity because with Trick Room teams, you're Dracovish fodder if you don't play properly. Dracovish, once that Trick Room is over, just bang, 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 bang. So what Jellicent does is discourages Dracovish from clicking Fissier's mindlessly. And that gives you the opportunity to pivot around however you so choose, and that might give you another Trick Room opportunity. Jellicent's also nice versus things like Cloister, which could also be problematic, though you have Melmetal, but it's just something to keep in mind. Its natural bulk allows you to deal with just a plethora of mines, and I like its stall breaking-esque potential. I went with a set of Trick Room, Strength, Sap, Nightshade, and Taunt. Primarily Taunt because bulk up Corviknight could be a massive problem, and if able to Taunt, and if it is pressure, then Strength Sap can weaken it. You Taunt, Nightshade it down as it's forced to Brave Bird, so it's taking Brave Bird recoil, to losing 100%. It's losing like 100 plus HP per turn between Brave Bird recoil and Nightshade, and then you Strength Sap the health back, which lowers the health. So you have means of dealing with bulk up Corviknight. Nightshade always breaks the sub. Skull just doesn't do enough damage consistently enough. I doubt Skull even breaks the sub if it gets behind the sub, and then that gets shaky. So, because you can't Strength Sap, you can't Scald. So it can technically, especially if it's pressure, 1v1 you. So that's just a countermeasure on the off chance shit gets shaky with versus a Corviknight. You got some outs versus that. So Water Absorb obviously is the ability I'm going to be going with today. I don't feel like his other abilities really hold merit. This also helps with Cinderace. As you can tell, Cinderace would be a massive problem otherwise. The newly introduced Darmanitan, and the spread can be adjusted. It could be max, and it doesn't. I opted not to go fully low speed on this because it's not an offensive threat. It's likely a Trick Room and Switch type of Pokemon. And when it's outside of Trick Room, there's certain things I want to be able to shut down. It doesn't need to operate only in Trick Room. So, like if I want to shut down a Hippowdon or something, I want you to be able to do that without Trick Room being up. If you Trick Room and then you have to come in on Hippowdon, you have two. Well, you have Mandibuzz, but you also have this beast right here, and then you have the Jellicent in and of itself to taunt, Strength Sap, beat that Hippowdon down. So that's definitely something interesting and an interesting interaction you're going to be seeing. And for my second Trick Room, I decided to go with Hatterene. Hatterene I think is just solid for two reasons. It can Trick Room, but it's also threatening, right? It provides another Trick Roomer, and all my Trick Room abusers are physical and strong, so it was nice to have something that's special and strong coming off the 4-8 special attack. You can opt for a Focus Sash, you can opt for Life Orb, you can opt for whatever you so choose, whatever you find useful, whatever you find that gets the job done, then so be it. I don't remember if the Baton Pass clause is still in play, like if it just has to be a stat boost, because that would be a clutch little thing, just Baton Pass to another Trick Room user, but abuser, but whatever. Especially because Hatterene is it discourages like status and moves that can't harm him. So like if it's weak to poison and steel, then Melmetal comes in, I'm here, or sometimes Crawdon's case, that might be a Swords Dance, you never know. But the Focus Sash just ensures that at the very least you get a Trick Room up. Like if you it's like, okay, I need that Trick Room up guaranteed, because you have hazard control, so you can control for hazards. Guaranteed, you can get it up and just put in some work. Hatterene's solid Pokemon, Fairy Psychic solid. Typing Lele, Gardevoir, Mega Gardevoir. I feel like there's another one, but yeah, all those typings are solid. So she joins the family of kind of female-looking psychic fairy types, because Lele looks female. You know, you get it. So now for the final member of the team and how so generally with Trick Room modes, I mean, this is just my bias personally to all my team building styles. So I think it made me have a unique approach to building Trick Room. Just pitfalls I've seen from Trick Room teams. They double down on the Trick Room with very little consideration for anything else. So I ended up throwing a Mandibuzz on here because what I find is when Trick Room is weak to something in particular, and that's going to bleed into Conk and Groudon's priority moves and whatnot. When Trick Room is weak to something in particular, they double down on it and double down on the speed aspect. Sometimes people have a fast Pokemon here or a Ditto here or something. I decided to go with Mandibuzz to allow for something that's fast and threatening, something like an Aegislash, right? Aegislash would mess me up. I mean, it still could technically mess me up, so you could even go out for a fast Mandibuzz. But a Dragapult, an Aegislash, Strong Ghost, Strong Darks, Nice Supply Hydreigon would mess me up. So what I opted for, in the Focus Sash and the Split of Mandibuzz is for cases where it's Hydreigon, Dragapult, whatever. You have the option of using Mandibuzz if it's a sub Hydreigon, sub Nasty Plot, maybe even Mono Dark Pulse. You have the option of you turning out, breaking that substitute, and bringing in Conkeldurr, activating the Flame Orb if it hasn't already been activated, or bringing in Hatterene, and then at that point the Hydreigon has to make a decision whether or not it's going to attack in a Hatterene and then get Dazzling Gleam killed because now the substitute is broken, or it's going to go down to a Mach Punch. Maybe, I don't remember the role for that. But these are things that it has to consider. You want to be able to put it in a spot where, okay, you can't just do as you please because I'm a Trick Room team and you're a strong plotting dark type. Same goes for Dragapult. Same goes for Decidueye. And funnily enough, Decidueye would give you a lot of problems. So Ghost Darks, definitely a problem. Melmetal should be able to deal with Grimmsnarl well enough, as I said, because Fairy, you got to be careful with fairies because 3 fairy weaks, 1 resist. So strong fairies like Clefable, you want to be wary of, very wary of. I could even argue just running like an Assault Vest, Melmetal or something, but these are just things to consider. You're never going to have something that's perfect or not weak to anything. It's just a matter of Trick Room, again, beating the opponent before they manage to beat you. You could opt for something else if you're like really concerned about Clefable. You could opt for some Mew with Mystical Fire that beats Clefable. Like, there's so many options. I've certainly not considered everything that can be considered. You could go for Heatproof Bronzong with Trick Room and Heavy Slam. Like, so many options. So definitely go ahead and explore, ladies and gents. You could go Gigalith, whatever, Steelix. Explore, ladies and gents. I don't want these to be ultra long, but unless you want them ultra long, if I have the time, I'll definitely cater. But I do want these to be very direct because I have the tendency to ramble because I just want to share so much information. I'm a very specific type of communicator. I don't like to leave a lot of room for ambiguity, but sometimes that can confuse a person more so than it can help them. I definitely type to give you every potential angle ever before I give you a decision, whereas some people function better if you just kind of tell them what to do or like give them just specific instructions one at a time rather than giving them all the information and expecting them to make a decision, especially if they're not well versed in whatever arena you're referring to. So yeah, that's going to be the Trick Room team for today. I'm going to be using it in a live, so stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. That way people can be notified of this series. It also lets me know how you guys feel. if I can get better at some things, if some things aren't clarified, please feel free. I encourage you to comment. That way I can improve. This is certainly not the best things can be done. So me knowing that that's a fact, I can get better at this. I'd love to hear the ways that things can be improved. But yeah, that's where we're gonna end it for today. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.